Joshua Taylor was 30 seconds from boarding the flight that could change his life forever when an elderly woman nearly collapsed in front of him. The gate agent was calling his name. His future was flashing in red letters. And the only thing standing between him and everything he'd ever prayed for was a stranger the world had already decided to ignore. He had one choice: run toward his escape, or stop and risk losing everything. He chose to stop. And that single decision detonated his entire life in ways he could never have imagined. Comment: would you stop or keep running? Subscribe, because the moment he misses that flight, nothing is ever the same again. Time did not tick in the airport. It bled. Every second felt torn loose from Joshua Taylor's chest and smeared across the polished floor, streaking toward Gate 14 where his future waited with no patience left. The terminal breathed in announcements and exhaled departures. Wheels hissed. Shoes struck tie like a drumline. Screens flashed destinations that sounded like escape routes. Seattle, Denver, Dallas. Words with wings. Joshua tightened his grip on the handle of his carry-on and leaned forward into the current, letting the crowd carry him the last stretch. His heart sprinted ahead of his body. His breath kept tripping over itself. He tasted metal at the back of his tongue, the familiar flavor of nerves and almosts. "You're late," a voice in his head said, not cruel, just factual. "You're always late." He checked his phone again, even though he already knew. 7 minutes. Boarding had started. The battery icon glowed an angry red, a sliver clinging to life like it knew how much was riding on this morning. One interview. One chance. No safety net stretched underneath. Joshua was 34 years old and tired in a way sleep didn't fix. The jacket he wore was clean but old, the cuffs soft from years of work. His shoes still carried a faint scent of oil no matter how often he scrubbed them. For over a decade, he had made a living coaxing broken machines back into motion, fixing what other people abandoned when it stopped being convenient. Engines, compressors, generators that had powered hospitals and construction sites, and factories that never learned his name. He didn't mind the work. He minded the ceiling. Every month felt like pressing his palms flat against it, testing for cracks that never appeared. Rent rose. Wages didn't. And at home, in a narrow apartment that smelled faintly of detergent and reheated meals, his younger sister depended on him in a way that made quitting unthinkable. Maya's laugh lived in his chest. Her textbooks lived on his credit card. This interview was different. Not a promise scribbled in an email. Not a "we'll call you." This was a final round, face-to-face. A systems role with a company that didn't just patch holes, but designed the whole machine. Health insurance. Stability. A ladder instead of a treadmill. Joshua had pressed his forehead to the bathroom mirror that morning and whispered, "Don't mess this up." The airport answered him now with a chorus. Now boarding Group C for Flight 782. That was him. He broke into a jog. The crowd thickened near the gates, a river splitting and rejoining around obstacles. Families argued softly. A couple kissed too long. A man in a suit barked into his phone, like time belonged to him personally. Joshua threaded through, apologized with his shoulders, eyes locked on the blue sign ahead. Gate 14 blinked. Final call. His chest tightened. He could see it now. The counter. The scanner. The door that would close and lock with sound that echoed longer than it should. He pictured himself shaking hands, sitting across from polished confidence, saying the right things. He pictured calling Maya afterward, her squeal bright enough to crack the ceiling at last. Then something snagged the edge of his vision. Stillness. In the middle of all that motion, there was a pocket of quiet that didn't belong. A pause shaped like a person. Joshua slowed without deciding to. His feet argued, wanting to keep their promise to the gate, but his eyes had already turned. An elderly woman stood alone near the junction where Gate 1 and Gate 2 branched off, as if she had taken a wrong turn and time had simply abandoned her there. She leaned heavily on a walker, her hands pale and trembling against the metal grips. A cardigan hung from her shoulders like it had been chosen for warmth rather than style. Wisps of silver hair escaped a careful clip. Her mouth moved, forming questions no one stopped to hear. People flowed around her, polite as weather. Joshua watched a man sidestep, without looking. A woman glanced, hesitated, then checked her watch and kept going. A boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. She shook her head, eyes already elsewhere. The airport swallowed concern whole. Not now, Joshua told himself. Not now. He turned back toward gate 14. The sign pulsed again, brighter, insistent. His heartbeat matched it, a frantic metronome. He took 3 steps. You can call assistance, the practical voice said. Someone else will handle it. 4 steps. You don't know her. You don't know what's wrong. You're already late. 5. The woman shifted her weight. The walker's rubber tip squealed softly as it slid an inch. Her shoulders hunched. Confusion flickered across her face. Quick and sharp, she looked up, eyes searching, and for the briefest moment her gaze snagged on Joshua's. It wasn't a plea. It was worse. It was trust, misplaced and fragile, offered without negotiation. Joshua stopped. His chest burned as if he had swallowed fire. He looked back at the gate, then at the woman, then back again, caught between 2 versions of himself. The one who ran, the one who stayed. He knew both men intimately. He had been the runner most of his life. Head down, teeth clenched, telling himself he'd help later, when he had more. Later had never arrived. Final boarding call for Flight 782. The announcement didn't say his name, but it might as well have. It threaded through his bones, tugging him forward. He imagined the door closing, the click like a verdict. He imagined the email he'd have to write. He imagined Maya's face when he told her. The woman's walker caught the edge of the tile. The sound was small, almost polite. A scrape, a stutter. Her body followed before the noise finished echoing. She pitched forward, slow and terrible, balance tipping beyond recovery. The world narrowed to angles and inevitability. Joshua moved. The decision happened in his muscles, not his mind. He dropped his bag. It hit the floor with a dull thud that sounded like a period at the end of a sentence he hadn't finished. He reached her in 2 strides, one arm bracing her shoulder, the other steadying the walker before it could betray her completely. "You're okay," he said, the words tumbling out instinctively. "I've got you." Her breath came in quick, shallow bursts. She clutched his sleeve, fingers light but desperate. Up close, he could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the way fear rearranged her face without asking permission. I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was thin, but there was steel beneath it, a lifetime of not wanting to be a burden. "I can't find my gate. Everything looks different." Joshua swallowed. He could feel his pulse in his throat. Around them, the river kept moving. No one stopped. The airport was very good at pretending moments like this didn't exist. "It's all right," he said, softer now. He glanced back once more. Gate 14. The scanner. The open door. What do you do when kindness costs everything? He didn't know the answer yet. He only knew that standing there, holding a stranger upright, the cost had already started accruing. The woman straightened slowly with his help. She smoothed her cardigan, mortified. "My name is Donna," she said. "Donna Moore." Joshua nodded. "Joshua." "Joshua," she repeated, as if anchoring herself to the sound. Her eyes flicked toward the departures board, then back to him. "You were going somewhere." He followed her gaze. The board glared back, unblinking. He felt the pull again, strong enough to hurt. He could still make it if he ran now. He could flag someone, point, apologize later. Donna's grip tightened. The walker wobbled. Joshua exhaled. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he said. The words surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise her. He bent, retrieved his bag, and then hesitated. After a beat, he set it down again and took the handle of her suitcase instead. It was heavier than it looked, full of someone else's life, someone else's destinations. As they took their first step together, the announcement rose once more, filling the terminal like a tide. Final boarding call for Flight 782. Joshua didn't turn around. Behind him, Gate 14 waited with its open mouth. Ahead, the woman leaned into the walker, uncertain and slow, and the crowd thinned just enough to reveal the long, bright corridor stretching forward. The clock kept bleeding, and Joshua Taylor walked straight into it. Joshua walked beside Donna more at the speed of restraint. Every instinct in him wanted to hurry, to calculate, to optimize the situation the way he had learned to do with broken engines and impossible deadlines. But Donna's steps were careful, measured, each one negotiated between dignity and necessity. The walker tapped softly against the floor, a metronome set to a slower life. Joshua matched it. The airport stretched wide and bright around them, all glass and steel and optimism. But the path ahead felt narrower with every gate they passed. Gate 13. Gate 12. Each sign was a mile marker he hadn't planned to miss. His bag felt heavier now, the weight no longer just physical but symbolic, as if it carried the future he was setting down inch by inch. Donna noticed. "I really am sorry," she said, her voice low, pitched so it wouldn't beg. "You don't have to do this. I'll be fine once I remember." She trailed off, frustration flashing across her face before she smoothed it away. Pride was stitched into her posture. It held her spine straight even as her hands shook. Joshua shook his head. "It's all right," he said. "We've got time." The lie slid out easily, practiced. He'd told it to himself 1,000 times in different forms. "Next month will be better. This job is temporary. I'll catch up." He wondered how many lies a person could live inside before they became walls instead of cushions. They passed gate 11. Boarding in progress. Joshua felt the tug again, sharper now. His chest tightened as if a rope were being pulled through him, one end tied to Donna, the other to the gate behind them. He imagined letting go. Just for a second. Just long enough to run. Donna stopped suddenly. Joshua reacted instantly, steadying her before she could lose balance. She leaned on him more than the walker this time, her breath uneven. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, then shook her head. I thought I saw someone." Joshua followed her gaze. A man stood near a column across the concourse. Phone lifted, not obviously pointed at them, but not pointed either. He wore a neutral expression, the kind that could belong anywhere. When Joshua looked directly at him, the man turned away and merged with the crowd. "Someone you know?" Joshua asked. Donna hesitated. The pause spoke louder than words. "I don't think so," she said finally, "but I've had this feeling since I arrived. Like I'm being watched. Followed." She let out a small, humorless laugh. "Ridiculous, isn't it? Paranoia comes free with age, apparently." Joshua didn't laugh. He had grown up in a neighborhood where attention wasn't always friendly, where being seen could be dangerous depending on who was doing the looking. He knew the difference between imagination and instinct. This felt like the latter. "We'll get you to security," he said. "They can help." Donna studied him, searching his face as if weighing whether to trust him with more than balance. "You don't look surprised," she said. Joshua shrugged. "I've learned not to ignore that feeling." They started walking again, slower now. Joshua positioned himself subtly between her and the flow of people, a human buffer. He told himself it was temporary, that he'd hand her off and sprint back, that miracles happen every day. Gate 10. Gate 9. The airport announcements blurred into a constant hum, but certain words pierced through. Final. Closing. Last call. Each one landed like a small cut. Donna broke the silence. "What do you do, Joshua?" He almost said fix things. He almost laughed at the irony. "Maintenance," he said instead. "Industrial systems. Mostly keeping old machines alive longer than anyone expects." She smiled faintly. "That sounds like important work." "Someone's got to do it," he replied. He thought of rusted bolts and stubborn gears, of nights spent under fluorescent lights, coaxing life back into metal that had been written off. He thought of how often the credit went elsewhere, to the shiny and new. "And today?" Donna asked, "What were you supposed to be doing today?" There it was, the question he had been avoiding. "I had an interview," he said, "out of state." "Had," she repeated gently. Joshua nodded. The word tasted bitter. "It was a big one." "I see," Donna said. She didn't apologize again. That somehow hurt more. They passed gate 8. Joshua's phone vibrated weakly in his pocket, the last gasp of a dying battery. A calendar reminder flashed briefly before the screen went dark. Interview. 11 a.m. He slipped the phone back without checking the time. He already knew. You know, Donna said after a moment, people assume that needing help means you're weak. I've never found that to be true. She paused. Asking for help takes more courage than pretending you don't need it. Joshua thought of his sister, of the night she pretended not to be hungry so he wouldn't worry. He thought of the landlord's notices, of the way the world seemed to reward silence over honesty. I grew up watching people get overlooked, he said before he could stop himself. Sometimes because they were poor. Sometimes because they were tired. Sometimes because no one thought stopping was worth the inconvenience. Donna glanced at him sharply. And what did you do? I kept my head down, he admitted, until I couldn't. They reached a quieter stretch near the security office. The crowd thinned, replaced by the low murmur of radios and the steady presence of uniformed staff. Joshua felt a flicker of relief. He could hand her off here, do the right thing, then run like hell. Donna slowed again, her grip tightening on the walker. Joshua, she said, voice dropping, if you leave me here, I understand. He looked at her, really looked, at the lines etched by years of being competent in a world that slowly took that competence away, at the way she stood, refusing to collapse into helplessness. Flights can be rescheduled, he said, the lie solidifying, becoming something he almost believed. Donna's eyes softened. That's very kind, she said, and very untrue. Joshua smiled despite himself. Maybe, but we'll figure out. He flagged down an attendant and explained the situation. The woman nodded, efficient and calm, and called for assistance. Joshua stayed close, one hand on the suitcase, the other hovering near Donna's elbow. From somewhere behind them, the announcement rose again, louder now, final in a way that brooked no negotiation. Final boarding call for Flight 782. Joshua felt like a hand on his back, urging him forward. He could picture the gate one last time, the door closing, the plane pulling away from the terminal, carrying a version of himself who chose progress over presence. He didn't turn around. Donna watched his face as the words echoed. She seemed to understand the weight of what he was doing, the math he had stopped calculating. You're choosing me, she said quietly. Joshua swallowed. I'm choosing to stay. The attendant returned with a wheelchair and a clipboard. As they transferred Donna carefully, Joshua stepped back, suddenly unsure where he belonged. The corridor behind him felt longer than before. Donna reached out and touched his wrist. Her grip was light but deliberate. Whatever happens next, she said, please know this mattered. Joshua nodded, throat tight. The boarding announcement faded, replaced by the ambient noise of an airport that never truly stopped. Somewhere, a door closed. Somewhere, a plane taxied away. Joshua stood still, facing forward, as the cost of his choice settled into his bones. Did he make the right choice? Comment your opinion. Also, share and tag someone who would do this. The sound was not loud. That was the cruelest part of it. There was no dramatic clang, no alarm, no cinematic finality. Just a soft mechanical click, followed by the muted thud of a door sealing itself with practiced indifference. The kind of sound that happened dozens of times a day, unnoticed by everyone except the person on the wrong side of it. Gate 14 closed. Joshua did not see it happen, but he felt it anyway, as if something inside him had reached out, grasped at the air, and come back empty. He stood near the security office, hands hanging loosely at his sides, watching an attendant wheel Donna away toward a quieter corner. The airport lights hummed overhead. Somewhere, laughter broke out near a coffee stand. A child ran past, dragging a backpack shaped like a dinosaur. Life continued with offensive enthusiasm. Joshua stayed still. His body seemed to understand what his mind had not yet processed. His shoulders lowered. His breathing slowed, then flattened. The tension that carried him forward all morning drained away, leaving behind a hollow fatigue that felt older than the day itself. It's gone, he thought. Not in panic. Not in anger. Just a simple statement of fact. The flight, the interview, the version of today he had rehearsed in his head 100 times. Gone. He walked slowly to a row of empty seats by the window and sat down. The plastic chair was cold against the backs of his legs. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, fingers loosely interlaced, staring at nothing in particular. No phone in his hand. No messages to send. No calls to make. Silence. This was how loss usually arrived for him. Not with explosions, but with a quiet rearranging of the world, subtle and final, like a bill slipped under a door, like a chair removed from a room without announcement. He watched the plane taxi past the glass, white and sleek, its engines humming with contained power. He imagined the passengers inside, buckled and distracted, unaware that someone had almost been among them. He wondered briefly if his seat was still empty or already occupied by someone grateful for an upgrade. The thought didn't sting as much as he expected. What stung was the image of Maya's face when he told her, not disappointment. She would never do that to him. It would be the careful neutrality, the brave smile that said, "We'll figure it out," even as another door closed somewhere behind her eyes. He had promised her this would be different. He had let himself believe it too. Joshua pressed his thumb into the scar on his palm, a small white line from a childhood accident with rusted fence. He used to do it when he needed to anchor himself in the present. Pain was honest. Pain did not lie. Nearby, Donna sat in the wheelchair, hands folded in her lap, posture straight despite everything. She watched him from a distance, her gaze lingering longer than politeness required. The airport staff spoke softly to her, efficient and kind, but her attention kept drifting back to Joshua like a tide that refused to settle. She knew exactly what it had cost him to stay. When the attendant finally stepped away, Donna motioned gently. Joshua hesitated, then stood and walked over, movements unhurried, as if speed itself had betrayed him earlier and no longer deserved his trust. "I heard the announcement," she said quietly when he reached her. Joshua nodded once. He didn't trust his voice. "I'm so sorry," Donna continued. Her eyes shone, but she did not let the tears fall. "I didn't realize it was final." "It's all right," Joshua said. The words came out flat, stripped of comfort. "It happens." "That doesn't make it small," she replied. He met her gaze then, really met it. There was something sharp there beneath the guilt, a calculation, an awareness that went beyond the moment. "You didn't ask me to stay," he said. "I chose it." Donna's lips pressed together. That choice had consequences. "Yes," Joshua said simply. She studied him as if she were trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that didn't belong to the picture she had been given. "Most people," she said slowly, "would have kept walking." Joshua gave a faint shrug. Most people did. They sat in silence again, the kind that did not need to be filled. Around them, the airport breathed and shifted, a living organism that absorbed stories without remembering them. Donna broke the quiet. "Where were you going?" "Seattle," Joshua replied. Saying it out loud felt like releasing a balloon and watching it disappear into the clouds. "For work." "Was it important?" Joshua smiled, small and tired. "It was supposed to be." Donna nodded, absorbing that. Her fingers tightened slightly in her lap. When she spoke again, her voice was different, more deliberate. "Joshua," she said, "I owe you more than an apology." He shook his head immediately. "You don't owe me anything." She ignored that. Instead, she reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. It looked ordinary, the kind of thing that could easily be mistaken for a receipt or a forgotten note. "I don't know how to say this without sounding strange," she said, "so I'll just say it." She held the paper out to him. Joshua hesitated. His first instinct was to refuse, pride flaring despite everything. He didn't want money. He didn't want a gesture that reduced a morning to a transaction. "It's not what you think," Donna said, as if reading the resistance on his face. "Please." He took the note. It was warm from her hand. Folded carefully, deliberately, not rushed. "Open it later," she added. "When you're alone." Joshua nodded, tucking it into the pocket of his jacket, without unfolding it. He didn't trust himself to read anything right now. His mind felt like a room after furniture had been removed. Too much space. Too many echoes. An attendant returned, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Moore, we're ready to assist you further," she said gently. Donna inclined her head, then looked back at Joshua one last time. There was something unresolved in her expression, a question she had not yet asked. "Thank you," she said again. This time, the words carried weight. "For seeing me?" Joshua swallowed. "Take care." As they wheeled her away, Donna turned her head slightly, eyes never leaving him until the crowd finally swallowed her too. Joshua returned to his seat by the window. He sat there for a long time. He didn't replay the moment he could have run. He didn't bargain with imaginary alternatives. He didn't curse himself or the world. He simply let the loss settle, heavy and real, like a stone placed carefully in his chest. Eventually, his hand drifted to his jacket pocket. The folded note waited there, quiet and insistent. Joshua took it out and stared at it for several seconds before unfolding it. The paper was plain, the handwriting precise. 5 words. "Do not leave the airport." Joshua read them once. Then again. He looked up, scanning the terminal instinctively, half expecting Donna to be watching from somewhere, half expecting nothing at all. The words made no sense. There was no explanation, no promise, just an instruction that felt less like a request and more like a tether. He folded the note back up slowly. The airport stretched around him, endless and indifferent, filled with doors that closed and paths that led elsewhere. Joshua stayed where he was. "Comment. What would you think this note means?" Like, for silent strength. Time slowed in a way that felt personal. The airport, once loud and swollen with movement, began to thin like a tide pulling back from shore. Morning bled into afternoon, without ceremony. The sharp energy that had driven Joshua earlier drained away, replaced by a hollow stillness that echoed inside his chest. He stayed. At first, staying felt like obedience. He had the note. He had the words. "Do not leave the airport." Simple enough. He told himself he would give an hour, maybe 2, long enough to say he tried. Then an hour passed. Then another. The crowd shifted from business travelers and vacationers to stragglers and janitors. Gates closed with soft clicks that no longer startled him. Chairs that had once been fought over sat empty, lined up like witnesses to something that had already happened. Joshua's phone vibrated once in his pocket, a weak shudder, then went black for good. No charger. No outlets nearby that weren't already claimed. The silence that followed felt heavier than the earlier announcements. He slid the phone into his bag and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The lights above him were bright but impersonal, illuminating everything except answers. Hunger crept in slowly, an ache that reminded him he had skipped breakfast in his rush. The smell of coffee drifted from a nearby kiosk, bitter and tempting. He checked his wallet. Enough for a sandwich. Maybe 2 if he stretched it. He didn't move. If this is nothing, he thought, I'll need that money later. That thought brought its own sting. Joshua shifted in his seat, rolling his shoulders to ease the tension that had settled there. His body felt heavy now, gravity insisting he had done enough for one day. He wondered how long Donna would take to realize he was waiting for nothing. He wondered if she already had. The note rested in his jacket pocket, like a coin pressing into skin. He hadn't unfolded it again, but he didn't need to. The words had carved themselves into his mind. Do not leave the airport. No explanation. No time frame. No promise. It felt reckless now. Naive. The kind of instruction someone gave when they could afford to be mysterious. Joshua exhaled slowly. What are you doing? The doubt asked reasonable and sharp. You missed your flight for a stranger. Now you're missing the rest of the day for a piece of paper. His gaze drifted to the window. Another plane rolled into position, engines roaring to life. He watched it lift, graceful and sure, disappearing into the sky like it had somewhere important to be. His sister's face surfaced unbidden. Maya, standing at the kitchen counter with a textbook open, pencil tapping against her lip as she worked through a problem she refused to let beat her. Maya, handing him half her sandwich and insisting she wasn't hungry. Maya, calling him her hero when he fixed the flickering light in their bathroom with parts salvaged from a broken lamp. I'm trying, he told the memory. I really am. He imagined calling her, telling her what happened. The words tangled in his throat, even in imagination. He could hear her response already. You did the right thing. She'd say, you always do. But right didn't pay rent. Right didn't come with health insurance. Joshua leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and pressed his palms together until they ached. Regret and peace wrestled quietly inside him, neither landing a decisive blow. There was relief in knowing he hadn't walked away from someone who needed help. There was also the sharp awareness that kindness had a cost he could feel settling into his bones. Was it foolish? He wondered. Or was it just expensive? He stood and paced slowly, stretching legs stiff from sitting. The terminal echoed now, his footsteps louder than they should have been. A janitor pushed a cart past him, nodding in silent acknowledgement. Joshua nodded back, a small, shared recognition between people who existed in the in-between hours. He passed a trash can and considered throwing the note away. The idea surprised him with its force. If he let it go, if he decided this was over, he could leave. He could find a bus, a cheap motel, a way home. He could start again tomorrow, the way he always did. Joshua took the note out and unfolded it. Do not leave the airport. The words looked the same. Black ink. No flourish. No signature. Only now, they felt heavier. Less like a suggestion, more like a test. Not of patience, but of faith. Faith! He muttered under his breath, the word tasting strange. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to have faith in. Donna? Fate? The idea that doing the right thing didn't always end in loss? He folded the note carefully and put it back. Minutes stretched. Then more. Joshua's stomach growled, loud enough that he glanced around, embarrassed, even though no one was close enough to hear. He finally gave in and bought a bottle of water, sipping it slowly, making it last. The cashier didn't recognize him as the man who had almost boarded Flight 782. To her, he was just another face passing through. That anonymity hurt more than he expected. He returned to his seat by the window. The light outside had shifted, softer now, angling low in gold. Shadows stretched across the tarmac. The airport felt like a place between chapters, waiting for the next line to be written. Joshua checked the note again, as if it might have changed. What if nothing happens? The doubt whispered. What if this was just an old woman trying to make herself feel better about ruining your day? The thought made him flinch. It was cruel. It was also plausible. He pictured Donna's eyes, the way they had held us a moment too long, sharp with something that hadn't felt like pity. He pictured the way she had said his name, as if it mattered. He stayed. Another hour passed. The terminal was nearly empty now. Chairs stood vacant. Gates dark. The airport's earlier energy had retreated, leaving behind a hollow quiet that pressed in on him from all sides. Joshua closed his eyes, letting his head rest against the wall. He wondered if this was how trust felt when it wasn't rewarded immediately. Uncomfortable. Exposed. Ridiculous. A voice cut through quiet. Joshua Taylor? His eyes snapped open. He looked up to see a man standing a few feet away, dressed in a tailored suit that didn't belong to the in-between hours. The man held a tablet in one hand and wore an expression that was neither curious nor apologetic. Joshua's heart lurched. Yes, he said cautiously. That's me. The man smiled, small and professional. Ms. Moore would like to see you. Comment. Would you stayed? Subscribe. What's coming next flips everything. Joshua stood slowly, as if rising too fast might shatter whatever fragile explanation his mind was assembling. The man in the tailored suit gestured politely. If you'll come with me, sir. Sir. The word landed oddly. Joshua glanced past him, half expecting to see Don in the same wheelchair, the same cardigan folded over thin shoulders, the same careful posture that had asked for help without asking. Instead, the corridor ahead opened into a quieter exit, glass doors leading to a section of the terminal he hadn't noticed before. Ms. Moore is just outside, the man added. Joshua followed, footsteps light, pulse heavy. Every doubt from the long wait rose at once, colliding with a growing, uneasy curiosity. The note burned in his pocket. The automatic door slid open. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast a world in gold. The curb was nearly empty, reserved for authorized vehicles only, and parked directly in front of the doors, engine humming with controlled confidence, was a black luxury sedan so polished it reflected the sky like a mirror. Joshua slowed. The man in the suit stepped aside, opening the rear door. "Mr. Taylor." Joshua hesitated, then stepped closer. Donna Moore emerged from the car. For a split second, his brain refused to connect the image before him with the woman he had held upright hours earlier. The transformation was not subtle. It was seismic. Gone was the cardigan. Gone was the walker. Gone was the fragile uncertainty that had been her frame and softened her voice. In its place stood a woman dressed in a tailored navy blazer and silk blouse, the cut sharp, the fit exact. Her silver hair was styled with deliberate precision, framing a face that now carried command instead of confusion. She stood tall, not just physically, but in the way people stood when they expected to be listened to, when the world, more often than not, complied. Joshua's mouth opened, closed, his heart hammered, searching for a rhythm that fit this new reality. "Ms. Moore," he managed. She smiled, the same smile he remembered, but now it carried a different gravity. Less apology, more certainty. "Joshua," she said, stepping forward. Her voice was calm, steady, unburdened by tremor. "You look surprised." He let out a breath that might have been a laugh if it hadn't been so sharp. Are you all right?" "Perfectly," she replied. Joshua's eyes flicked instinctively to her legs, half expecting the walker to appear, half expecting the ground itself to tilt. She moved easily, confidently, every step surer. The woman who had stumbled earlier now seemed incapable of falling. "I don't understand," Joshua said. It was the only honest thing he could offer. Donna studied him for a moment, her gaze intent, evaluative. Then she gestured toward the car. "Let's sit," she said. "You've had a long day." Inside the sedan, the air was cool and quiet, insulated from the airport's constant hum. Leather seats, soft lighting, a world away from the plastic chairs and flickering boards Joshua had been inhabiting for hours. He sat stiffly, hands folded in his lap, suddenly acutely aware of his worn jacket, his scuffed shoes, the faint smell of oil that no amount of soap seemed to erase. Donna settled opposite him with ease. "You waited," she said. Joshua nodded. "You told me not to leave." "And you listened." He shrugged. "I didn't have much else to do." Her eyes softened briefly, but her posture remained composed. "You could have left," she corrected. "Most people would have." The man in the suit closed the door quietly, then moved to the front seat, leaving them in a bubble of privacy. Joshua shifted, tension coiling in his shoulders. "You weren't injured," he said slowly. "No." "You weren't confused." "No." "You don't need a walker." Donna smiled faintly. "No." The words stacked, each one widening the crack in the version of the day Joshua had been holding on to. He pressed his thumb into the scar on his palm again, grounding himself. "Then why?" he asked. Donna leaned back, crossing her legs with unhurried grace. "Because the world behaves differently when it thinks you are ordinary," she said. "And even more differently when it thinks you are invisible." Joshua frowned. "So this was—" "What?" "A test." Her gaze sharpened, not unkind but precise. "An observation." He swallowed. "I missed my flight." "I know." The words landed with more weight than sympathy alone could explain. She hadn't just noticed his sacrifice. She had anticipated it. Joshua's confusion peaked, spilling into something dangerously close to anger. "If you knew," he said carefully, "if you knew what it would cost me, why let it happen?" Donna did not flinch. "Because I needed to see who you were when it did," she replied. The car was silent except for the low purr of the engine. Joshua stared at her, searching for the fragile woman he had helped, the one who had needed him. She was gone, or perhaps she had never been there at all. "You let people ignore you," he said slowly. "You let them walk past." "Yes." "And you let me stay." "Yes." Joshua leaned back, exhaling hard. That's not fair." Donna nodded once. "No, it isn't." She leaned forward slightly, resting her hands on her knees. The movement was small but intentional, a shift in energy that commanded attention. "Life rarely is," she continued, "but character reveals itself most clearly when fairness is removed from the equation." Joshua looked away, jaw tightening. He thought of the long wait, the hunger, the doubt, the note pressing into his pocket like a promise or a trap. "What happens now?" he asked. Donna's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Now," she said, "we talk." She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder, setting it on the seat between them. Joshua's eyes flicked to it, then back to her face. "Before that," she added, "there's something I should say." She straightened, the last trace of softness replaced by something unmistakably authoritative. The air in the car seemed to shift with her, as if it recognized the presence of power. Joshua felt a chill run through him. Donna met his gaze, unwavering. "Allow me," she said, "to reintroduce myself." Like, if you felt that reveal. Comment. Did you see this coming? "Allow me to reintroduce myself." Donna paused, not for drama, but for precision. She had learned long ago that silence, when used correctly, carried more authority than any raised voice. Joshua felt it settle between them, thick and expectant. "My name is Donna Moore," she continued, "and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Moore Global Industries." The words did not explode. They landed. Joshua blinked once. Then again. He waited for the sentence to correct itself, to turn into something more reasonable. Consultant, regional director, retired executive with a few investments. Anything that fit the woman he had studied in the terminal, the woman who had needed help finding her gate. But Donna's expression did not change. "Billionaire?" Joshua asked quietly, the word feeling unreal in his mouth. "Yes." The answer was simple, unapologetic, as if wealth on that scale were merely a fact of weather. Joshua leaned back against the seat, breath leaving him in a long, controlled exhale. His mind scrambled to reorganize the day, replaying moments that suddenly looked different under this new light. The stumble, the walker, the note, the waiting. "You pretended," he said slowly. Donna inclined her head. "I travel without pretense." "There's a difference." Joshua let out a short, humorless laugh. "You had me fooled." "So did the rest of the airport," she replied. That was the point. She turned slightly in her seat, angling her body toward him, not as someone seeking permission, but as someone offering context. "I've spent most of my life being seen," she said. "My name on buildings, my face on magazines, my decisions moving markets." She paused. "And I learned something uncomfortable early on." Joshua watched her closely now, curiosity overriding disbelief. "When people know who you are," Donna continued, "they behave the way they think they're supposed to. Polite, helpful, performative. They open doors not because they care, but because they're afraid not to." Joshua thought of the man who had turned away when Donna struggled earlier, of the dozens who had passed her without seeing her at all. "And when they don't know," he asked, "they reveal themselves." The car hummed softly around them, insulated from the world it had momentarily exposed. "I travel this way sometimes," Donna said. "No assistance, no security detail in sight, no title preceding my name. I become ordinary." Joshua frowned. "That seems dangerous." "It can be," she agreed, "but it's necessary." She reached into the folder and removed a single photograph, holding out to him. It showed her standing in another airport months earlier, wearing similar plain clothes, blending into the background. People walked past her in a blur. "I watch how systems treat people when no one thinks they matter," she said. "Airports, hotels, hospitals, boardrooms. You'd be surprised how invisible competence becomes when it isn't packaged correctly." Joshua took the photo, his fingers brushing the glossy surface. He thought of his own life, of fixing machines no one thanked him for, of being essential without being acknowledged. "And today," he asked, "was today part of that?" "Yes," Donna said, "but it was more than observation." She met his eyes. It was evaluation. Joshua stiffened. "Of me?" "Of character," she corrected. "Yours happened to intersect with it." He shook his head slightly. "I didn't do anything special." "That," Donna said, "is exactly why you did." She leaned forward again, voice lowering. "Do you know how many people offered to call someone for me today? How many pointed vaguely and kept walking? How many said, "Someone else will help"? Joshua didn't answer. Dozens, she said. All of them competent. All of them busy. All of them skilled. She paused. None of them stopped. Joshua swallowed. You stopped even when it cost you, she continued. You didn't know who I was. You didn't expect anything in return. You chose presence over progress. He shifted uncomfortably. I just didn't want you to fall. And yet, Donna said gently, you fell instead. The words struck deeper than accusation. They reframed everything. His misflight was no longer an unfortunate consequence. It was the evidence. Joshua stared at the floor of the car, memories rearranging themselves. The man with the phone near the column. The note. The tailored suit calling his name. This feels like a test I didn't sign up for, he said quietly. Donna nodded. That's how most of them are. He looked back up, eyes sharp now. What if I had kept running? Donna didn't hesitate. Then you wouldn't be sitting here. The honesty in her tone left no room for offense. You see, she continued, skill is abundant. Intelligence is abundant. Experience is abundant. What's rare is someone who does the right thing when it actively harms their prospects. Joshua let out a slow breath. So, this was about morality? About values, Donna corrected. Morality is what you say. Values are what you do when no one is watching. She leaned back, folding her hands. My company moves aircraft, resources, people across continents. Every decision ripples outward. I cannot afford leaders who only optimize for themselves. Joshua's mind raced. So what happens now? Donna studied him for a long moment, her gaze thoughtful rather than scrutinizing. Now, she said, you understand why I asked you to wait. She reached into the folder again and removed a second document, sliding it across the seat toward him. Joshua didn't touch it. I know what you're thinking, Donna said. You're wondering if this makes the day worth it. If kindness just paid off. He nodded once. That's the wrong question, she said. The right one is whether you would have stayed even if this never happened. Joshua thought of the quiet chair by the window, the hunger, the doubt, the note burning in his pocket. Yes, he said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. I think I would have. Donna smiled then, a genuine curve of approval. Good. She tapped the document lightly. Because this, she said, is a reward. Joshua raised an eyebrow. It's a responsibility. He finally looked down. The document bore the logo of More Global Industries, clean and unmistakable. His name appeared beneath it, typed neatly. What is this? He asked. Donna's voice softened, but her words carried weight. An opportunity. One that doesn't come from an interview panel or a resume. His heart pounded. My interview, he said. The one I missed. Donna met his gaze steadily. I canceled your interview. The sentence hung in the air, sharp and unresolved. Joshua's chest tightened. You canceled it? Yes. 1,000 questions collided in his mind, but before he could ask any of them, Donna added quietly, because I'm offering you something else. The car remained still at the curb, engine idling. The world outside unaware that Joshua Taylor's life was pivoting on a single decision yet to be. Do you think this is fair or fate? Comment your thought. Share this story for people to see why character matters. Joshua stared at the folder as if it might open itself. The logo on the cover was understated, confident in a way that didn't need decoration. More Global Industries. He had seen the name before, of course. Anyone who paid even casual attention to infrastructure, logistics, or aviation had. It was the kind of company that existed quietly behind everything, invisible until something went wrong. The kind of company that shaped the world without asking permission. Donna watched him without rushing. Go on, she said. Open it. Joshua hesitated, then slid the folder onto his lap. His fingers felt clumsy as he lifted the cover, like they belonged to someone else. Inside were neatly arranged documents, charts, and a letter with his name printed at the top in clean, professional type. Joshua Taylor. Seeing his name, there did something strange to him. It felt both validating and absurd, like reading a headline that couldn't possibly be about you. This isn't an employment contract, Donna said, anticipating the question forming behind his eyes. Not yet. Joshua flipped the first page. It outlined a leadership development initiative, global in scope, focused on operations, ethics, and human-centered decision-making. There were locations listed. Cities he had never imagined seeing outside of a screen. Nairobi, Sao Paulo, Frankfurt, Singapore. His throat tightened. "What is this?" he asked quietly. "A pilot program," Donna replied, "designed to identify and shape future leaders inside the company. People who understand systems, yes, but more importantly, people who understand people." Joshua looked up. "You don't know anything about my qualifications." Donna smiled. "I know more than you think." She leaned back, crossing her legs again, posture relaxed but unmistakably in control. "I know you fix things others give up on. I know you support your sister. I know you chose to stay with a stranger instead of chasing your own advancement." Joshua shook his head slowly. "That doesn't make me an executive." "No," Donna agreed. "It makes you teachable." He let out a breath that was half laugh, half disbelief. "You're talking about a global program. People like me don't just step into that." Donna's eyes sharpened, not with offense but with interest. "People like you?" Joshua gestured vaguely at himself. "I've never been in a boardroom. I don't have the right schools on my resume. I don't even know how to talk the way people in your world talk." She regarded him steadily. "Do you know why most organizations fail?" Joshua hesitated. "Bad leadership?" "Predictable leadership," Donna corrected. "Rooms filled with people who sound the same, think the same, and protect the same assumptions." She leaned forward, voice lowering. "I don't need another polished speaker. I need someone who notices what others overlook. Someone who asks who gets left behind when efficiency becomes the only metric." Joshua felt a familiar heat rise in his chest. The same one that flared when he saw corners cut at work, when safety checks were skipped because no one important would notice. "That kind of thinking gets you labeled difficult," he said. Donna smiled. "Only in places that don't deserve you." He looked back down at the folder, flipping through the pages slowly. There were outlines of projects focused on workforce dignity, ethical logistics, crisis response systems designed for communities rather than headlines. "This isn't just a job," Joshua said. "No," Donna replied. "It's a responsibility." The word settled heavily between them. Joshua's mind raced, not with excitement but with fear. Real, grounding fear. The kind that whispered all the reasons he didn't belong here. He pictured himself walking into rooms where everyone knew the rules he had never learned. He imagined being exposed, his ignorance laid bare, the quiet judgment that followed. "I don't fit," he said finally. Donna didn't argue. She nodded. "That's the point." He frowned. "How is that supposed to reassure me?" "It isn't," she said calmly. "Growth rarely is." Joshua closed the folder gently, as if it might bruise. "What if I fail?" Donna's gaze softened, but her voice remained firm. "Then you fail doing something that matters." He swallowed. "I've spent my whole life making sure I don't fail, keeping things running, staying in my lane." "And where has that lane taken you?" she asked. The question wasn't cruel. It was precise. Joshua thought of the ceiling he kept pressing against, the apartment, the promises deferred, the quiet exhaustion of survival. "I don't know how to be the person you're describing," he admitted. Donna nodded. "Neither did I." That caught his attention. "You," she smiled faintly. "I was raised by a single mother who cleaned offices at night. I learned early how to move quietly through spaces that weren't built for me. When I finally entered rooms with power, I realized something." She paused, eyes distant for a moment. The loudest voices were rarely the wisest, and the people who cared most about others were almost never the ones in charge. Joshua listened, surprised by the intimacy of the confession. "I built my company differently because of that," Donna continued. "But even now, I have to be intentional about who I let shape it. Titles can be taught, values cannot." She leaned closer. "That's why this offer goes beyond money." Joshua laughed softly. "That's good, because I wouldn't know what to do with money like that anyway." Donna's smile widened. "Exactly. Silence stretched, not awkward but charged. Outside the car, the airport existed as a distant backdrop, unaware of the quiet battle unfolding inside. Joshua looked at his hands. Scarred, capable, unfamiliar in this context. What happens if I say no? He asked. Donna didn't hesitate. You walk away. You live your life. You keep fixing things. And you'll still be a good man. He nodded slowly. And if I say yes? Her eyes met his, steady and searching. Then your life becomes less predictable. Harder, louder, and far more consequential. The word echoed. Consequential. Joshua felt the weight of it press into him. Equal parts terrifying and electric. He thought of Maya again, of the example he set every day without realizing it, of the choice he had already made in the terminal, the one that had cost him everything he thought he needed. Maybe this was the cost of becoming someone else. He opened the folder again, scanning the final page. At the bottom, a simple line awaited his response. Decision pending. Donna watched him, giving him space, but not relief. I won't pressure you, she said. This has to be your choice. Joshua looked up, heart pounding. Why me? He asked one last time. Donna smiled, calm and certain. Because when the clock was bleeding, you didn't run. She sat back, hands folded neatly. I need your answer. The words hung there, heavy and unavoidable. Joshua inhaled slowly, and the world waited. Comment. Would you accept this, yes or no? Subscribe, because the hardest decision is coming. Joshua did not answer right away. The car idled softly beneath him, a restrained purr that felt almost respectful of the moment unfolding inside. Outside the tinted windows, the airport existed as a blur of glass and motion, people moving toward places they had already decided on. Inside, everything had gone still. He held the pen Donna had placed gently on the seat between them. It was heavier than he expected. Joshua turned it slowly between his fingers, watching how the light caught along the metal, how something so small could feel like an anchor. He had signed documents before, lease agreements, overtime approvals, forms that kept his life in the narrow lane it had always traveled. This was different. This wasn't about permission. It was about direction. He closed his eyes. Images surfaced uninvited. Not the dramatic moments people imagined when they talked about crossroads, but the quiet ones, the ones that build a life without ceremony. Maya at 12, sitting on the edge of her bed with her knees pulled to her chest, pretending not to cry when he told her they'd have to move again. Maya at 16, slipping a scholarship letter under his bedroom door, because she didn't want to wake him, pride bursting out of her in ink and paper. Maya last night, texting him a simple good luck. You've got this. He wondered how many times she had said that because she believed it, and how many times because she needed him to. Joshua opened his eyes and looked down at the folder again. This wasn't just a chance for him. It was a reshaping of everything that came after. A chance to change a conversation he'd been having with himself since he was old enough to understand limits. This is too big for you, the doubt whispered. Joshua almost smiled. It was the same voice that had followed him through every promotion he hadn't applied for, every opportunity he convinced himself wasn't meant for someone like him. The voice that dressed fear up as humility and called it wisdom. He thought of Donna in the terminal, hunched and overlooked. He thought of how easily the world had stepped around her. He thought of how close he had come to doing the same. If he had learned anything today, it was this. Waiting until you felt ready often meant waiting forever. Joshua straightened in his seat. Donna watched him without expression, not pressing, not encouraging. Her stillness was deliberate. She had made the offer. The rest belonged to him. I keep thinking, Joshua said quietly, that someone is going to realize this is a mistake. Donna's lips curved slightly. They already have. He glanced up, startled. They made it years ago, she continued, by teaching you to underestimate yourself. Joshua exhaled, the truth of it settling in his chest. He looked at the line waiting at the bottom of the page. His name, a blank space, the invitation to step forward or retreat gracefully. What if I change my mind later? He asked. Donna nodded. You will? He blinked. I will. Yes, she said. Growth doesn't eliminate doubt. It just teaches you how to walk with it. Joshua considered that. He thought about the alternative. Going home, explaining the missed flight, picking up another shift, fixing another machine that someone else would eventually take credit for, living a life that was good, honest, and safe. Safe. The word landed differently now. Joshua pressed a pen to the paper. The moment was quieter than he'd imagined. No swelling music, no dramatic pause, just the soft sound of ink meeting paper as he wrote his name with deliberate care. Joshua Taylor. He lifted the pen and stared at the signature for a long second, as if it might disappear if he didn't watch it closely. It didn't. Donna didn't clap. She didn't smile broadly or reach across the seat. She simply nodded once, a gesture so subtle it could have been missed by anyone not paying attention. Approval without spectacle. "Thank you," she said. Joshua let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His chest felt lighter, not because the fear was gone, but because he had stopped running from it. "What happens now?" he asked. Donna took the folder back, closing it with care. "Now," she said, "you go home." Joshua frowned. "That's it. For today," she replied. "You've done enough." He leaned back, exhaustion finally making itself known. His body felt like it had run a marathon, without moving very far at all. Donna studied him for a moment, then spoke again. "You should know something." Joshua looked up. "I didn't offer this because I felt sorry for you," she said. "And I didn't offer it because you help an old woman." He nodded slowly. "I offered it because you revealed who you are when no one was watching," she continued. "That's the only resume that matters to me." Joshua absorbed that in silence. The car door opened quietly. The man in the tailored suit stepped out and moved around to Joshua's side. "Transportation is arranged," Donna said. "You'll receive details in the coming days." Joshua stepped out of the car, the cool air brushing against his face. The airport loomed behind him, familiar and strange all at once. The place where his life had closed one door and opened another without warning. Donna remained seated, watching him through the open door. "One more thing," she said. Joshua turned back. "When doubt comes," Donna added, "and it will, remember this day. Remember that you already chose courage once before you knew what it would cost." He nodded, unable to find words that didn't feel insufficient. The door closed. The car pulled away smoothly, disappearing into the stream of authorized vehicles like it had always belonged there. Joshua stood alone for a moment. Then he picked up his bag and walked back inside the terminal, not toward a gate, but toward an exit. The world felt different now. Not easier, just wider. Time passed. Not minutes or hours this time, but weeks. Then months. The story did not jump forward with fireworks. It moved the way real change always did, quietly, accumulating weight before anyone noticed. Joshua received emails, then calls, then itineraries. He packed bags again, different ones, for different reasons. And somewhere between one sunrise and the next, the life he had signed for began to take shape. Like, for choosing growth over fear. Share, because someone needs to hear this. Joshua no longer woke to alarms. He woke to light. Morning spilled through tall windows and stretched across polished concrete floors, warming the edges of space that hummed with quiet purpose. The training center came alive slowly, the way well-run systems always did. Screens flickered on. Coffee machines murmured. Voices gathered, layered with accents from places Joshua once thought of as abstract dots on a map. Now they were colleagues. He stood near a work table, sleeves rolled up, hands resting flat on a blueprint spread wide before him. Around him, a small group leaned in, eyes attentive, bodies angled not out of obligation but curiosity. "Don't just look at the numbers," Joshua said, tapping the page lightly. "Ask who they touch." A young engineer frowned thoughtfully. "You mean the labor side?" "And the community side," Joshua replied. "And the failure side. Every system fails eventually. The question is who pays when it does." The room fell quiet, not because he demanded it, but because they were listening. Joshua noticed it then, the subtle shift that had become familiar. He wasn't performing. He wasn't proving. He was guiding. The words came easily, shaped by years of fixing things from the inside out. When the session ended, the group dispersed reluctantly, lingering with questions, laughter trailing behind them like loose threads. One of the trainees, barely out of school, hesitated near the door. "Hey," she said. "Thanks. No one's ever explained it like that." Joshua smiled. Someone should have explained it to me earlier, too. After they left, he stood alone for a moment, absorbing the quiet. The walls bore photographs now, not portraits of executives, but images of teams in motion, airports, warehouses, clinics powered back on after storms. Faces caught mid-effort, mid-laughter, mid-rescue. He moved through the space slowly, fingertips brushing against a railing worn smooth by use. This place had been an idea once. A pilot, a risk. Now it breathed. Later that afternoon, Joshua stepped outside and checked his phone. A message from Maya waited. "Got the internship." He laughed out loud, the sound echoing off glass and steel. He leaned against the railing and called her immediately. "I knew it," he said when she answered, her excitement tumbling over itself. "You didn't know," she shot back. "You just believed." Joshua closed his eyes, listening to her voice. She talked about her new apartment, her classes, the people she was meeting. She sounded lighter, freer, like someone who no longer carried the weight of survival on her shoulders. "I'm proud of you," he said. She paused. "I learned it from you." When the call ended, Joshua stayed where he was, phone still warm in his hand. He thought of the quiet nights, the sacrifices she never complained about. The ripple had reached her now, gentle but undeniable. Inside the center, movement caught his eye. Donna stood near the back of the room, unobtrusive, hands clasped loosely in front of her. She wore a simple blazer, no entourage, no announcement, just presence. Joshua noticed the way people didn't rush to impress her. They didn't even realize who she was at first. They worked. They collaborated. They laughed. Donna watched it all with a faint, knowing smile. When their eyes met, she nodded once. Later, they walked together to the facility, their footsteps unhurried. Joshua explained changes he'd made, small adjustments that had outsized impact. Donna listened, occasionally asking a question that cut straight to the core of an issue. "You've built something here," she said. "We've built something," Joshua corrected. She smiled. "Exactly." They stopped near a wall where a new photograph had been added. It showed a group gathered around a table, Joshua among them mid-explanation, unaware of the camera. "You didn't even notice that was taken," Donna said. Joshua shrugged. "I was busy." "With the work," she replied. "That's how I know it's right." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the next group file into the room. Different faces, same anticipation. "You remember the airport?" Donna said quietly. Joshua nodded. "Every day." "Good," she said, "because I don't want you to forget where this started." "I won't," he replied. "It's the reason I stay grounded." Donna studied him, satisfaction evident but restrained. "That grounding," she said, "is why I'm here." Joshua turned to her. "What do you mean?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim tablet, waking the screen with a practiced tap. She handed it to him. On the display was a map. Red markers clustered around regions recently hit by disaster. Infrastructure failures. Supply chain breakdowns. Communities cut off. Joshua's brow furrowed. "This is big." "Yes," Donna said, "and complicated." He scrolled, absorbing the scale. "You want the center involved?" "I want you involved," she replied, leading it. Joshua looked up sharply. "Me?" Donna met his gaze steadily. "This is bigger than training, bigger than preparation. It's real time, high stakes, the kind of work where every decision matters immediately." Joshua felt the familiar pull of doubt stir, quieter now but present. "That's the lot." She nodded. "It always is." He studied the map again, the dots no longer abstract but human. Families, workers, children, systems failing where people needed them most. "This would mean relocating," he said. "Travel, long hours." "Yes." And if it goes wrong? Donna's expression didn't soften. Then we learn, and we do better. Joshua handed the tablet back slowly. He thought of the man he'd been months ago, sitting in an airport chair, staring at a closed gate. He thought of the question that had haunted him then. What do you do when kindness costs everything? He had an answer now. You're not asking me because I'm ready, he said. No, Donna agreed. I'm asking you because you're willing. Joshua exhaled, feeling the familiar blend of fear and resolve settle into place. He looked around the center one last time, at the people moving with purpose, at the space that had grown from a single choice. When do we start? He asked. Donna smiled, a rare, unguarded expression of pride crossing her face. Tomorrow. Joshua nodded. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the training center floor. Inside, lights came on one by one, steady and bright. The ripple continued outward. Comment. What would you do next? Subscribe, because this isn't the end. Joshua stood alone at the edge of the runway, not the kind marked by numbers and lights, not the kind that announced destinations over loudspeakers. This one was quieter, wider, made not of concrete, but of time. The wind moved steadily across the open field, carrying the distant sound of engines lifting somewhere beyond sight. He watched the plane rise into the sky, its ascent smooth and confident, and felt no tug of envy, no ache of regret. That surprised him. Once, the sight would have tightened his chest, reminded him of the morning when everything had seemed to slip through his fingers. The airport, gate 14, the closed door, the life he thought he was supposed to board. Now, it felt like a memory he could hold without flinching. Joshua slipped his hands into his jacket pockets and smiled faintly as his fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. The note. He had kept it all this time, its edges softened, creases worn thin from being unfolded and refolded during long nights and early mornings. He took it out. Do not leave the airport. He read the words slowly, letting them settle again, differently now. Back then they had felt cryptic, heavy, almost cruel in their simplicity. An instruction without context. Now he understood. The airport hadn't just been a place. It had been a moment, a threshold, a test of whether he would run toward the future he thought he wanted or stand still long enough to see the future that was actually calling him. Donna's voice surfaced in his memory, calm and precise. Growth doesn't eliminate doubt. It just teaches you how to walk with it. Joshua folded the note carefully and slipped it back into his pocket. Behind him, footsteps approached. You always come back here when you need to think, Donna said, stopping beside him. He turned, smiling. Some habits stick. She followed his gaze as another plane lifted, its shadow skimming the ground before disappearing entirely. Funny, she said. People think runways are about departure. Joshua nodded. But they're really about direction. Donna looked at him, pleased. Exactly. They stood in companionable silence, the kind built over shared understanding rather than obligation. The years between the airport and this moment had passed quietly, marked not by headlines but by work, by systems rebuilt, by people trained, supported, empowered. Joshua no longer introduced himself by what he fixed. He introduced himself by what he stood for. I used to think missing that flight was the worst thing that ever happened to me, he said. Donna tilted her head slightly. And now I see it was the first honest thing I'd done in years, Joshua replied. The first time I chose who I was over who I was trying to become. Donna smiled, approving. Most people spend their lives chasing destinations. Very few stop to ask whether the path fits them. Joshua thought of Maya, thriving in a life she had built with confidence rather than caution. He thought of the young trainees who now asked better questions because someone had once asked them of him. He thought of the communities that no longer appeared as red dots on a map because systems had been designed with care instead of convenience. All of it traced back to a single decision made under fluorescent lights, with an announcement echoing overhead. I used to measure my life in missed chances, he said. Now I measure it in moments I stayed. Donna nodded. That's how you know you've arrived. Joshua laughed softly. Funny thing is, I never boarded a plane that day. And yet, Donna said, her voice gentle. You travel further than most people ever do. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in muted golds and blues. The air smelled faintly of fuel and grass, industry and earth woven together. Joshua felt grounded in a way he never had before, rooted not by fear, but by choice. He had stopped asking whether he belonged. He belonged because he showed up. Do you regret anything? Donna asked. Joshua considered the question carefully. I regret how long it took me to trust myself. She nodded. That's a common delay. They began walking back toward the building, their pace unhurried. Joshua glanced once more at the open expanse before them, at the invisible lines where planes lifted and lives intersected. The missed flight no longer haunted him. It guided him. As they reached the door, Donna paused and looked at him one last time. You know, she said, people still ask me why I chose you. Joshua smiled. What do you tell them? The truth, she replied, that when the world gave you permission to keep running, you chose to stop. Joshua opened the door, warmth spilling out to meet them. Turns out, he said, that's where everything began. Donna's smile widened, rare and genuine. Sometimes, she said, the flight you miss is the runway you were meant to walk. Joshua stepped inside, carrying the words with him, not as a lesson learned, but as a life lived. And somewhere, far behind him, a gate closed softly, unnoticed by anyone else. Like, if this story moved you, comment. Where did it hit you? Subscribe. More stories that change perspectives.